All right, welcome to And Also. I am here with Kirk Steigler,
Hello.
and we are talking about Faith Alliance Church's last week's message, going through the exciting action packed book of Exodus.
It is action packed.
It is action packed. And this is the second season, episode 11. We've checked and verified that is true. And we are going to be talking about the Ten Commandments.
Every kid's favorite.
I What's better than a list of rules?
Especially one that says honor your father and mother.
Yes, and that comes with a promise. Well, that's and so I'm always anytime as kind of a background into my thinking. Anytime we approach this, I'm always interested in Kirk's uh, thoughts about the scripture and about this what's going on in the text. So one of the things I'm interested in the book of Exodus is the tone shift that happens around now, where they approach Mount Sinai, the Israelites around Mount Sinai, and it moves from kind of action adventure into uh, law
Here's living.
and law and bureaucracy. Kind of a spiritual bureaucracy. So there's more to it than that, of course, but it is an interesting kind of, to me, it's an interesting tonal shift that happens in kind of chapter 19, but really chapter 20 when we get the commandments. So all that to say is, what do you think about all this?
So, uh, just before we started testing our microphones, we were discussing near the end of the previous chapter, which kind of sets, I think, the tone for why we start the commandments right here. Right, so we're in Exodus 20 looking at the Ten Commandments, but if you go back to the end of Exodus 19, where everybody's getting ready to hear the commandments for the first time, uh, and thankfully only 10, right? So people are counting them off on their fingers. How long till we get to the end? Oh, this pinky,
We
right? Yeah. So that's it. I just love that this is God has called, right. So we were laughing about this earlier.
This is great. Yeah.
Be, and we'll fill you guys in uh, because this is just beautiful to me. Starting at verse 20 of chapter 19. So now we're getting ready for the big announcements of the Ten Commandments. We're setting the law for a group of people who were under a thumb for a very, very long time on their own, right? They were stuck working 430 years, you said, right? So how long has this country been around?
Under
Our country, the United States of
yeah,
America.
250 years, or give or take.
Yeah, even if you want to throw it all the way back to the first English colonists
Sure.
that actually made it,
Yeah.
right? Not the first bunch in Virginia that no one likes to talk about. The ones that landed in Plymouth, right? The ones that landed in Plymouth, and we have a date carved on a not very impressive rock sitting on a beach in a stone house, still getting washed over with sand and so on. That was 1620, right?
Okay.
So this year, right now, is 2022. So we've made it from that point 402 years. These folks had been sitting under the thumb of Pharaoh for 430. They've and been told what to do every day. Right? They're slaves. Right? They were slaves, which is why they were groaning. Which, or at least that's the excuse we're told about why they're groaning. People have it pretty good here in this country, and we still groan. So I don't know. I don't know if the slavery was really the reason, or if we're just as humanity, we just groan. Yeah, right. But in any case, now we're getting down to we've had this group of people, the Israelites, separated from the rest of the modern world. Right? All the modern world at that point, we had the coastal cities. So and then so you have like besides Egypt, the Hittites and Canaanites and all those folks along the coast. Um, Persia out to the west a little, and the formations of, and then now they're just kind of sitting in the middle, right, above the Red Sea, moping around through the wilderness slash farmland, right? It's they're finding who they are, and so to help ease things, God shows up and descends to the top of Mount Sinai. I love this, right? Descends to the top of Mount Sinai. Now he's in a giant cloud because no one can look on it, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's for everyone's safety.
Yeah.
And then, so first of all, everyone sees this giant cloud descend on the mountain, and they know it's God, right? Everyone knows. But on top of everyone knows, God calls Moses out from the crowd. Hey, you!
Get up here.
Get up here. So Lord descended to the top of Mount Sinai, calls Moses to the top of the mountain. Mountain. It's not a little hill. It's not to this platform. Moses gets called to the top of the mountain. And Moses went up.
That's verse 20 of chapter 19.
Verse 20 of chapter 19. Verse 21, and the Lord says, go down. Which is just great. As soon as you get up there, great, you made it. All right, head back down.
So here's what I want to tell you.
Yeah.
Go down.
Yeah. Oh, come on. You couldn't have announced that from up there. All right. Warn the people so they don't force their way through to see the Lord, and many of them perish. So that's, first of all, here we have this massive group of people who had previously been in Egypt. There were many Egyptian gods. I don't think of the people who went to see the Egyptian gods, any of them perished encountering or worshiping their god, right? As a result of encountering their god. So now, whoa, whoa, everybody! Just as a heads up, if you come up here, I'm different. I'm holy. And you cannot be in this presence. You folks who are filled with sin, unfortunately, you must stay there. Except Moses, who only killed a guy.
Do you think that's why that's why God is careful to instruct Moses to tell the people, because you think the people would have been used to, which they would have been used to Egyptian worship, which you would have, that kind of, there wouldn't have been power, there wouldn't have been any of this. So God's like, I'm not like, almost like I'm not like that. He's distinguishing.
I'm sure there was some sort of distinct separation, right? I mean, we still see archaeological sites of temples,
right?
And it was, we see examples that everything's kept separate, but no one approached the temple and died, right? That doesn't happen.
Yeah.
So to know that the presence of God is so intense that you may not withstand it, that's serious. And like, who's the first one to tempt fate?
It can't be that bad,
right? There's always Bob, right? Bob's gonna push the boundaries, and so whoever's gonna push it just too far, right? But we don't hear about that. But there is a comment coming up which I love, and I want you have to get the background of why the guy who says what he says it, and it's because of this. Go down and warn the people. Don't force your way through to see me, right? Guys, stay back. You'll hear me. Right. But don't try to come up and see me, or they will die. Even the priests. All right, so right there, I want to back up. We have priests? Who are the priests? That's amazing. Okay, cool. We have priests somehow. Oh, cool. So we have priests, and don't let them close even. They must consecrate themselves, or the Lord will break out against them. And now, as a child of the 80s, I'm immediately picturing a dance battle, which is probably not what he means by breakout, but that's all I can. There's a lot of parachute pants in my head right now, and I'm sorry, everybody. But then Moses said to the Lord, "The people cannot come up to Mount Sinai because you yourself warned us. Put limits around the mountain and set it apart as holy." What are you sending me all the way back down for? You only told us this. And like, go down and bring Aaron back up with you. Why didn't you tell me to bring him in the first place?
You could have said, can you bring Aaron too?
But the priests and the people must not force their way through or to come up to the Lord, or he will break out against them. So Moses went down to the people and told them. But does it say and then came back up with Aaron? We don't know.
No,
That does not
doesn't say
happen.
it. It doesn't say it, but
Doesn't
yeah.
say it because then we kick right off with the Ten Commandments on the next page. Right? Boom. That's it. So there's a lot of up and down the hill, and then we end up here at the Ten Commandments.
Because Moses is just like, I'm done. We're just going on the commands. I'm too tired.
Yeah,
Like, I'm just
Aaron
gonna start.
Schmerin. I've walked up and down this hill enough times.
I'm just. Let's just start with
He's older than
number
I am, for
one.
crying out loud. With the two of us are now coming back up this hill. These people are going to be old by the time they get back down. So the Ten Commandments. So now God's at the top of the mountain speaking. And that's amazing because nobody misses it. This is a broadcast to everyone around the base of this mountain. God spoke all these words. Right? So that's awesome. And when we get to the end of the chapter, apparently it was too awesome. But so right, I am the Lord your God who brought you out of Egypt and the land of slavery. You shall have no other gods before me. Period. Right? This is kicking it off. So you may have had neighbors who were worshiping a cat or an alligator or a hippopotamus. It was not any of those. It was me. So leave those ideas behind. We're starting over here, kids. Me. Um, you shall not make for yourself an image in the form of anything in heaven above, earth beneath, waters below. So in very broad terms, covering everywhere, right? That's that's it. So for people whose understanding of the cosmos at that point was relatively limited, I mean, they witnessed these things,
Right.
but you will not make an idol out of any of these things, right? You should not bow down to them or worship them, for I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God. What and whoa, right? So that's a big warning, right? I am jealous. Not like that cat god who's like, well, I guess you're worshiping the hippo god today. That's all right, right? No,
Because there's a fickleness to,
me only.
yeah, and there's a fickleness even to Egyptian, Roman, Greek, gods of like, not only, were they were usually only annoyed or bothered in their the understanding of worship. There was, this kind of like direct emotional response from a god is not like anything else in the ancient Near East. We're like, for a god to say he is a jealous god. You're right.
To
It's a
introduce himself as
that's
jealous.
a that's a very particular thing
I
for a
brought you
god.
out of Egypt, out of the land of slavery,
Right.
and I'm jealous.
Right. Yeah, that's interesting. How that's very particular to hear. And it really sets God, Elohim, this God, apart. Um, from and again, the one thing and the one thing that to keep in mind, um, what Kirk, you were talking about cosmology, is every other tribe or nation like the Egyptians would have had, were polytheistic. There was no other
Right.
monotheistic god. The idea of there being multiple gods would be like us saying there's multiple grocery stores in the city. I mean, it just would have been like, of course, there's multiple gods that we worship. And so for God to kind of pull himself out from that and distinguish himself and then say he's jealous, you're right. I've not picked up the jealous thing before. You're right. That's an interesting
I mean, he's pretty
dynamic.
explicit about it.
Right. Yeah. That's what he uses to describe himself. He's like, I'm a jealous God.
He doesn't say I'm the loving God,
Right.
which that comes later,
Yeah.
but I'm a jealous God.
He's prioritizing to say I'm jealous before? Like, do you think he's trying to communicate something to the Israelites?
Definitely. But I think they've been out of his
Mm,
periphery, or what's a better way to put it? Orbit,
mm,
for a very long time.
mhm,
Abraham, yes. Isaac, yes. Jacob, yes. Right? And then you get to the 12 brothers,
mhm.
and a little bit, right?
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So you get Joseph, and the other brothers are like, oops, right? But they get on board, right?
Right.
And then it now dilutes.
Mm,
400
yeah.
years, right? That's a long time of maybe. Uh, on the flip side of that, we're at 2,000 plus years of has been since, right?
That's yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But at this point, uh, and 2,000 plus years of the world radically changed from one point of ultimate sacrifice, right?
Mm,
Which is different than my God, your God, his God,
that's
right?
true.
Right.
Yeah.
So their understanding of the world at that point, now they're looking at the world through this, like you say, this polytheistic lens, and they've been yanked out of
Mm,
all the powers of the Egyptian gods were shown to be weak
mm,
and decimated as
mm,
part of the plagues, right? One by one by one,
mm,
all the way up to the Pharaoh himself.
mm,
Everything was eliminated
mm,
and shown to be crushable by this God,
mm,
who is calling them back out.
mm,
So he's called them back out and rescued them, right? Set them free. And then in so doing, say, I set you free. You, I'm the one you'll be worshiping, and don't be messing around because I'm jealous.
mm.
And then with the warning, punishing the children for the sin of the parents to the third and fourth generation. So it's not just not you're in trouble.
Mm,
4 generations
mm,
down the line, your family will suffer.
mm.
That's a heavy weight,
It's
right?
a hard, it's a yeah.
That's heavy.
It's a big pill.
Yeah, and then but showing love.
Mm,
So here's the love part. Right? So you follow me, you worship me, I love to 1,000 generations. That's amazing.
mm,
So I mean, you can't even imagine your relatives that far ahead.
right.
So to 1,000 generations, to those who love me and keep my commandments.
Do you think then too? So like, because we look, so you look and be like, goodness, he's saying, visiting iniquity to the fathers through 4 generations. Um, and we're like, oh, 4 generations. But then he's like, well, listen, like
On the
I'm
flip
showing,
side,
right, I'm showing steadfast love to thousands of those who love me. So is he kind of creating he, again, distinguishing not only himself but now his affection to say like, listen, it's serious. If you know, like if you uh, um, if visiting the iniquity of the fathers and the children, like this is a serious business. But even that's limited compared to my love that's to thousands. Like do you think he's using that as a way, even though we look and be like, oh, 4 generations, that's a lot of generations. But do you think he's looking at being like, it's not like even my the way I visit iniquity is very limited compared to my love.
well, there's a couple ways to look at that. I think one way is to say, yes, it is set apart as distinct. My love lasts 1,000 generations
Mm,
towards you and your family. My punishment, which is distinct, right? It's he doesn't say, and now I hate you or I smite you.
I see.
I
Yeah.
punish
Yeah.
up to 4 generations away, right? So the punishment does show a love in terms of correction, right? Like a shepherd to sheep, you
Interesting. Yeah, that's a good
getting
point.
people back on board.
Yeah.
And also, I think 4 generations is about how many generations a family, a nuclear family, will have influence on. Like, you will have your kids, your grandkids, and maybe you're alive for great grandkids and their impact, right? So you've had influence on this group.
So it's
So
your presence upon.
your sin might influence these other generations behind you,
Mm,
he's going to address that.
I see. Yeah. So he's not. So you're not even saying, and this might even be similar to the God hardening the Pharaoh's heart. Did I say Pharaoh's fart?
Yes, which is great, and please don't edit that out.
I will not. That's you don't say Pharaoh's fart very often. So when you
I
do,
never do, but that was great.
but when you do, you keep that alive.
Yeah.
But like hardening the Pharaoh's heart, where we can look and say God is hardening the Pharaoh's heart, or we can look and say what God is doing is causing the Pharaoh to respond in such a way that it's hardening his heart. And are you saying kind of the same thing where it's like it says 4 generations? It's not that God is deliberately causing punishment upon 4 generations. It's the consequences of the 1 generation upon the 3 others
Correct.
that visit the iniquity, because it's the consequences of versus God's deliberate action toward.
The consequences are
Like,
God's deliberate action, I think.
So God punishes, right? And punishment is an act of love, because every good parent has to punish an act of love. Like that's
Don't put your hand in the fire.
right. That's parenting
I'm going to put
101.
my hand in the fire.
Yeah.
Don't put your hand in the fire. Right?
Right. Yeah.
I'm going to put my hand in the fire. Don't put your hand in the fire. You know?
Right.
Oh, why'd you hit me? Right? Because you're putting your hand in the fire.
Right. Yeah.
And I saved you from burning your hand or taking a trip to the emergency room. So, yeah, it's that's the correction, right?
And so but you're saying the consequences of the correction itself visit 4 generations because of the influence of the 1 generation over the 3.
Right.
Versus God deliberately punishing 4 generations.
Yeah, I don't think it's because and I hate your great grandkids.
Right. Yeah.
Right?
Yes. Okay.
It's not
right,
that.
Yeah.
It's because you still have that sway as head of household or
Yes.
something along that idea, right?
Yeah.
Over the like if everyone's living in tents together, multiple generations perhaps in close proximity, which sounds uh, like
It
a
sounds
lot.
intense.
It sounds well, in multiple ways. That's great. Both intense and intense.
It's intense to live in.
That's
tents.
right. All right.
Yeah.
So close proximity to a lot of family generations simultaneous.
That's true.
And at this point too, patriarchy was strong, right? So you have this strong influence coming down from the top. And so, yeah, you could steer your family wrong. And so God's like, no, don't do that.
Yeah. And you do see that like in
Now.
Well, you see it now for sure. You see it now, but you even throughout the Bible, you see God saying, here is the way," like Mandalorian, right?
Yeah.
Here's the way, uh, and someone goes the opposite way. Jonah, or David. I mean, so like all these things were, but that punishment visits upon, it's generational. Like you can see it, you can track it biblically even in generation. Right. Yeah. 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 And then that's where it gets right. Mephibosheth, isn't that where he gets redeemed back, invited back into the table?
Yes.
Yeah. But not until then is it. So yeah, you're right. You can see that just the generational consequences happen because of choices that people make or ways in which God has to punish in order to correct.
Which should be warning to all of us. Right. I don't know if we've ever really stared at it like that, but it's, I think, a good warning to all of us, the impact we have on our own families. Right.
That's generational.
That's generational.
Yeah.
Right. So that's a heavy duty warning right off the bat. Right. Then you shall not misuse the name of the Lord your God, for the Lord will not hold anyone guiltless who misuses his name. Oh boy. Because wow, there's a lot of people who have to answer for that. A lot of people throughout history. And wow, there's got to be a moment where you've done something and realized I said this because I said and the Lord says. Oh
yeah.
All right. Wow, that one's heavy. So God will forgive a lot of things. But this one, he deliberately says, will not hold anyone guiltless. Ooh, oops, right? So we're coming up on the sacrifice part towards the end to come up to resolve your guilts. But this one, no. there's no coming back. You've crossed a line there. And then again, here's a group of people who were slaves, as best we can tell, right? Everyone was slaves. Everyone's working constantly, because, and we still see the evidence, right? Because it's still sitting there in Egypt. A lot of building. People built a lot of stuff. So here we have a group of people whose job it was to build perpetually, right? To provide the bricks, or to carve bricks, or to set up bricks. There's a lot of bricks. For the kids who are listening, like their kids listening,
for all the children that are staying up past their bedtime,
like Minecraft, right? But for forever, so right, 430 years of Minecraft. Imagine you just never, and it's somebody else telling you to build. You can't build on your own.
You can't build what you want.
No, you're building my house, my tomb, right? Everything, right? So here we have a group of people who, for 430 years, have been working 7 days a week. And now God says, I'm the one who dragged you out of there, right? I'm jealous. Be careful. And then don't misuse my name. You only work 6 days. And then everyone kind of goes, oh, okay.
What?
What's that? We've done 7 days for forever. But yeah, to hit that wall and say you only work 6 days, including no one in your house.
That's
right,
including servants, livestock, or sojourners within your gates.
The sojourners within your gates must have been weird. For the sojourners within the gates, because they were like, "Hey, this is a great day to do X, whatever that is," and everyone's like, "Not today." But that's amazing to imagine that he calls out, going back to creation, calls out, I rested, you will rest. Right. 6 days is plenty. Thanks. All right, take a break. Which is followed by honor your father and your mother. So honor your father and mother. Your father and mother were working for the bad guys, right? A minute ago. Or not really, right? They were doing what they were told.
Right,
Living a life in a culture that it was Egypt. This is what everybody did, right? This is what you do. So they were living a different lifestyle than what is about to start now. And didn't really know God. So I think in the very beginning where Moses feels awkward. When he comes back to the Egyptians, after the initial part where he's like, send someone else. This burning bush talking to me. No, you know what? Find somebody else wandering around out here. that whole thing. So you get him coming back and trying to talk to people. Hey, fellas, why are we arguing? Right? All that awkwardness in the very beginning. No one really knows. Everyone's heard of, but no one knows God. And so now God's standing on a mountaintop in front of them, belting out these rules. So honor your father and your mother. Okay. So that you may live long in the land that the Lord your God is giving you. And that's an interesting statement, because the people wandering out here, they're not going in there. It's their kids. So their kids then have to remember grandma and grandpa and dad and mom who died out before we got into the promised land, right? The generation doesn't make it. That's the adults here.
So the generational promise is for the next generation.
The next generation.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And then now he kicks in with the one-liners.
I like these are funny to always.
Don't kill each other.
Don't murder.
Right. So I guess that maybe that was common. Right. Don't murder. Don't commit adultery. Don't steal. Like you have to spell that out. So you shall not give false testimony. Don't lie about your neighbors. Right. And just say, I saw him doing X, Y, Z. don't covet your neighbor's anything, right? That's
Because it doesn't lead to good stuff.
right.
Yeah.
So yeah, grass is never greener in the other part of the yard, right?
Yeah.
At this point, because nobody has their own
There's no grass anymore.
property,
Yeah.
right? It's the tent you're in. So like, don't covet your neighbor's wife, male or female servant, ox or donkey. That is the best donkey. They have the best donkey. Our donkey's garbage.
Look at a stupid donkey.
We have a stupid donkey. Their donkey's amazing.
Look at how glamorous their donkey is.
The way it just ruffles its hair in the breeze.
The newest brand of donkey.
Right, yeah. Donkey 2.0. Right, so what in the world? But yeah, just, you have what you have and say thank you. And then this is the part where I had to look back at chapter 19 because now these 10 commandments have been spelled out. And when the people saw the thunder and lightning and heard the trumpet, whoa, there was a trumpet, and heard the trumpet and saw the mountain in smoke, they trembled with fear. They stayed at a distance and said to Moses, "Speak to us yourself, and we will listen, but don't have God speak to us or we will die." So I was like, why are they reacting like this? Because a minute ago, God stood on top of the mountain, said, "Hey, Moses." And yeah, that part. So now he's telling everybody these things. And apparently the angels are like, God has spoken. Here's the trumpet and thunder and lightning. And it's quite a show.
I guess so.
And apparently absolutely terrifying. Because again, this couldn't have happened with hippo god, crocodile god, cat god, hawk, nothing. Right?
And I think too, what's interesting about that idea of monotheism versus the polytheism of other gods is, so let's say this God, Yahweh, gave the 10 Commandments. Well, if he was just one God among many, then Crocodile God would come and be like, no. Here's what you have to do.
Here's an exception too.
Right? Yeah.
Murder one.
Right.
Yeah.
That doesn't count when you.
Yeah.
And then Hippo God would say, and so for Yahweh, for Elohim to be one who comes in and says, no, this is the ethic. This is the way to have a relationship. This is what it looks like. It's inarguable. There's not the exceptions to what this looks like. And surrounding that is kind of is power, is like exactly what you're saying. Like the everything that other gods couldn't do.
Yeah.
I
just like Moses' reaction. Because he's really casual about this.
Yeah.
Because this is his everyday. This is work,
he's
right?
Like,
Going to the office. So Moses turns and says to the people, "Don't be afraid." The people have just peed themselves. And Moses is like, no, that's how it goes. He just talks like that. He's a loud talker. What do you want?
Loud talker. He's a close talker.
God has come to test you so that the fear of God will be with you. Is it working? Right? Apparently, yes.
Yeah.
Right?
Check.
People remained at a distance. Oh, well, then that little perimeter thing we were talking about before was a success. And Moses approached the thick darkness where God was. Did he bring Aaron? That was the earlier request.
I don't know.
We don't know. He doesn't say. He just says he approached.
Maybe that's why Aaron builds the golden calf later. He's like, God told you to bring me with you. This is what happens when you don't listen. I build golden calves.
So, we'll get to that. But the next little section on idols and altars. So Moses God has spelled out the 10 Commandments out loud to everyone. Everyone hears this. Now, in the movie, we get the Charlton Heston up at the top of the mountain. God carves these things into rock and hands them the tablets. And I did not read about tablets in here.
It shows up later.
Yeah.
I mean, exactly the way that Charlton Heston would have, did it.
Okay. But here no.
No, here it's verbal.
God says.
Right.
That's what it says at the top of this.
Yeah.
Right? And God spoke all these words. Not God carved
That's right.
These words. Yeah. God spoke all these words. Right? So, whoa. Also because probably not everyone was literate.
That's true. That's a good point too.
So
and
that's why he left it at 10, right? He's got 10 fingers and toes. Yeah.
I can do 10.
We can do 10. Keep it simple for these folks.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's pretty amazing to imagine that we're all familiar with uh, these 10 Commandments, right? Coming down the mountain, um, Moses glowing, all that, right? Moses glows later, but at this
He does.
point, yeah, just God speaks. So then Moses goes back, goes back, and the Lord said to Moses, "Tell the Israelites this." Right. So now is God whispering? Because this part's funny to me that
Because he's been talking.
he
Yeah.
was talking and people were freaking out, but now people have backed up and
God's like, oh, I'm sorry.
hey, whatever. All right, you guys, listen. You've seen for yourselves that I have spoken to you from heaven. In case you were curious, that's where we were. Don't make any gods to be alongside me.
Mm,
It's not me and
mm.
it's just me,
Yeah.
right? Don't make for yourself gods of silver or gods of gold. So we have people with handicraft skills among,
Mm.
and that comes up next, I think. So make an altar, and this is interesting. Make an altar of earth for
Huh.
for me, and sacrifice on it your burnt offerings and your fellowship offerings. And when you think back to Abraham, right?
Mm.
Abraham is just assembling Cain, Abel. It's just that's it. The
Mm.
sacrifice is in a place, right? On a nothing fancy.
There's not. Yeah, you're right. There's nothing associated with it.
So when we look at these archaeological digs of the temples of other cultures, things are fancy.
Yeah.
God says no.
Mm.
And why? And my guess is someone will take pride
Mm.
or have a sense of vanity about what they made, right?
Well, back to I think back to the second commandment, right? So you should not make for yourself to carve image any likeness. As you were reading that, I was thinking like, what's behind that? And honestly, any and this is I mean this is true about any kind of idol is idolatry is an attempt to control the thing that you can't control, right? That's it's your so you may if you make um, a carved image, any likeness of anything, uh, you're trying to control that thing. You're trying to make something that's ineffable or something that's transcendent into something you can see and touch and control. And I think so. Like
Hmm.
idolatry is kind of that sense of attempting to control the thing that you can't control. And I wonder if I don't know this to be true, but as you said that, I wonder if God's like you make stuff fancy, you turn it into something you take pride in, like you said, something you control, something that you begin believing in the thing versus the God. You believe in
Right.
the temple more than I believe in the God of the temple, and so God's like, don't you don't need to make it fancy, like make it of earth. That's a really interesting
Yeah.
point.
So that he calls that out is interesting.
Yeah.
Um, for your fellowship offerings, your sheep and your goat and your cattle, wherever I cause my name to be honored. So that's an interesting call out.
Mm,
Wherever I cause my name to be honored. So, be it in a temple or in the middle of this open space
yeah.
or on top of the mountain, I will come to you and bless you. If you make an altar of stones for me, and this is interesting too, do not defile it with, if you use or you will defile it if you use a tool on it.
Huh.
So, just grab random rocks, is what God is saying, right?
That's
Isn't that it?
what you have. Use what you have.
Find
Mm,
rocks, and those are the good ones
mm,
if you must use rocks. Otherwise, if you start carving things, dressing stones, right?
mm,
So if
mm.
you're, which is what these poor folks have been doing for 400 years,
That's true. Huh.
don't be doing that. I
Yeah.
don't want that. Don't use a tool. And then, and then my favorite verse at the very end, and do not go up to my altar on steps because you're not wearing pants. That's just that God has to spell that out is one of my favorite things because here we are. You start this whole story off Garden of Eden. Who told you you were naked?
Yes.
And now we get to here and we're like,
Oh my
guys,
gosh. That is
Don't
so.
go up on stairs, cause what in the world?
It's all this like kind of like worship and like here's how you make, and then God's like one more
No
please.
stairs. No stairs. Let's keep this all on ground level,
It's
guys.
just so practical. That's so I've never. That's so funny. It's so practical. He's like, well, it's kind of like God like gives all this instruction that he's walking away. He turns around. He's like points a finger in the air.
One more thing.
One more thing. It probably goes without saying, but you're not wearing pants, so don't make anything.
Let's not
Just-
go up
just
and down
not-
anything, please. Let's just keep it all here on the same level.
Oh.
Standing around. Let's just stand around for the worship part.
That is wonderful. That God is that practical.
And that's the end of that.
There goes that chapter.
Which is a great way to end it.
Oh, it's so good.
So we end the first one, the one before with come up the mountain. Oh, go back down the mountain, and now we end this one with you're not wearing pants.
Please don't ascend stairs because you don't have pants on. That is awesome.
I don't want to see that either.
Yeah.
And I made that.
Nobody wants.
Nobody wants that.
Oh, that is awesome. I think instead of trying to resolve, because we're at time here, I think instead of trying to resolve this, I think we just need to leave it with don't make any stairs because you're not wearing pants. On that note, episode 11 comes to a close. We're stopping right there because that's really honestly just pretty good advice anyway. It still holds up.
That's the best part of the 10 Commandments.
It's
Put on pants.
or don't go upstairs. One
Don't
of
go
the two.
upstairs, either
Choose
one.
one. Either put on pants or don't go upstairs. But not. On that note, we'll bring this episode on the 10 Commandments to a close. And in the next couple of weeks, we'll be doing the law begins to some idea about law and justice, and we'll be getting into the golden calf. We'll be getting into covenant, a whole bunch of fun stuff. So thanks for the final commandment there. Not one of the 10, but a good one. And as well as the rest of them. 10A.
Put on pants.
By the way,
Yeah.
but we'll see you next time.
Thanks for everything.